Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have an amazing human being. So delighted that she was able to make it today. It is my pleasure to introduce to you guys Miss Annmarie Hatfield, and I want to make sure I said that correctly, Annmarie. Was that good? Perfect.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. So Anne-Marie's part of our community, and we're looking forward to having her more on our stages as well. And if you guys haven't been to one of our events, please make sure you take the time to do so and see the amazing guests that show up and present on their expertise. Anne-Marie, do you mind talking to our audience members a little more about what you do and how you got involved doing that? And then we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I own a company called College Inroads. We help high school students get into college. Um, the way I got into it, my mom was in public education 35 years, so I have a special place in my heart for educators. I always wanted to be a high school counselor when I was growing up, and my mother told me that I didn't have the patience to be a teacher, which you had to do first before you became a counselor. And so my life kind of took a whole different pathway, if you will. I met my business partner, and he was running an educational services company at that point in time. I was a salesperson for him, and we decided to partner. His father was also in public education, so we had a nice connection there. And that's kind of how we all started 13 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe it's been that long.
All right. So we're talking about college inroads, and of course, I think the key part of this is that we're not going to wait till college before we actually start thinking about this, right? So let's talk about that. First of all, when you got started with this, what was the first thing that you learned about the people that were coming to you? Meaning that what's the earliest that it should be a good time to for people to start thinking about college?
Yeah, I mean, financially, we should be thinking about paying for college when the baby's still in the belly, right? So families need to start super early in preparing financially for college. We actually created an eighth grade package this year because we had so many families with kids in middle school, and they weren't sure what the pathway through college, through high school was to be able to get to college. So we created a special package for that. I mean, if I could wave a magic wand and we could get all of our clients all at one point in time, it would be sophomore year, second semester, sophomore year of high school is the best time to contract with what's called an educational consultant or a college coach, which is the two names that describe what we do. But yeah, I mean, as early as middle school, kids are starting to think about it. Because a lot of times the classes the kids take in middle school will show up on the high school transcript. And it's really, really important that we get the kids set up in middle school for the classes they're going to be able to take as a senior in high school.
Emery, I just had a squirrel moment, so we're gonna kind of go off the track, and I want to ask you this because we're talking about college, and I think it's important for families to really actually determine whether college is actually the right thing for the kids or not. So, having this dialogue, when should they have this dialogue? What are some of the things to kind of bring up to the child's attention, and to try to explore this in the first place?
I mean, that's a really, really important thing to think about. I would start having conversations with your kids as early as possible. I mean, even in elementary school, we can start thinking about, is that something that you're interested in? Because college isn't for everybody. It really isn't. The Department of Education several years ago said only about a third of the kids in high school should actually go to college. If we're not going to college, we have to have a plan, right? We have to military or go to go be a chef or plumbing or taking over a family's business, etc. So college doesn't necessarily have to be for everybody, but for those kids, and the majority of the kids that we work with are going to a four-year university. For those kids, we need to start thinking about that, planting those seeds early on. Starting to think about planning again, as I mentioned earlier, for college in middle school, junior high, even before you get to high school, where, the transcript is really one of the most important things to get into college. But, just have the conversations early and feel the student out. And if the student doesn't want to go to college, totally fine, but let's figure out the pathway forward from there.
I love that. It's funny because this conversation is happening. I literally just came back 2 days ago from a week-long road trip with my son, visiting different colleges. He's a rising freshman, so he's really early on. But I wanted him to get a feel for what college life looks like, and it was really amazing to see him go in with a certain idea of what college is, and then seeing the campuses and starting to fine tune his selection as to I like this about a campus, I don't like this about a college, and develop a more solid basis and foundation for what he wants his life after high school to look like. So
It's
I totally
so critical, and especially if we have a student that isn't necessarily interested in college, take them on a college visit. Let them walk around the campus and see what their life potentially could be like, in the next 5 or 6 years. Sometimes that's enough to plant the seed. Like your son is doing, it's so important to go to the college campuses because your perception of what college is like may not be reality. Right? And maybe you really, for your whole life, all you've ever wanted to do was go to Harvard. And you go to visit Harvard and you're like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Right? That's
exactly.
almost more important than
Right.
visiting colleges that you know the students are going to love because that visit is absolutely critical. I love that you're
All right.
doing that early. I love that.
Thank you. All right, the squirrel is gone, so let's go back on track, basically. So when we're talking about this, what are the typical questions or things that land on your doorstep? What are the challenges that the parents are facing when they're considering college? The child has decided, you know what, college sounds like a good idea, and the parents are like, all right, here we go. Like, what's the first thing that usually pops up?
So number one, the paradigm shift is reality, right? Getting into college now is so completely different than it was, the million years ago when most of us went to college, right? I filled out 10 questions on a form. I licked the stamp, I threw it in the mail, I waited for 6 months. I got the letter, I'm in, I'm going to college. Very, very different now. It's very competitive. A lot of our parents are worried that their student, they don't know what schools the student is the right fit for. They're not sure how they're going to be able to pay for it because college is very expensive these days. They're not sure what their student wants to major in or where their aptitudes lie. They don't know all of the process. They're afraid they're going to mess something up and they're going to put their kids in a bad situation because they don't know all of the steps. It's complicated. It's a process. And so luckily that's one of the things that we help people with is that process. But, those questions are common. Every single client that we meet with has those types of questions. So
So earlier on, you mentioned this thing called independent educational consultant. And I remember when I was in high school, we had a high school counselor, and then we had this career day or whatever that we would go in, take some tests, or had that conversation. How is an educational consultant different than, say, a high school counselor that does career counseling?
yeah. I have such love for our high school counselors because we do a lot of what they want to do. In the United States, roughly 400 kids per counselor. And so, even though they want to help the students figure out where to apply, how to apply, what to write the essays about, how to complete the college application, they just don't have the time and the bandwidth for that. And that's where an educational consultant like ourselves come into the picture is that we work in our practice, we work individually with all of our clients and help them figure out what's going to be the right fit university, what building do we want to apply to on campus, which we brainstorm with our students so they know what to write their college essays about. We sit with them as they're working on their college applications. We file financial aid forms for all of our clients. So all of the different pieces of the process of getting into college, you know, there are people like us out there that do that. Probably 90% of what I do is just educate families that there are companies like ours out there that can help with that. But yeah, very, very important. And we try to fill the gap. Like I said, the high school counselors want to help. They just don't have the time and the bandwidth to be able to do so.
And you said that if you had your way, sophomore year was the ideal year, basically. So what happens then? What's so significant about that time period?
Yeah, for sure. So junior year is really when all of the heavy lifting in our process happens, when the students will go through a career search to figure out what building to apply to on campus, when they try to figure out the criteria by which we want to do a college search. What are the most important aspects of a university to consider, right? Do we want a really, really big one or do we want a really small one? Do we wanna stay in our state or do we wanna go as far away from home as possible, right? And so those types of things are really critical. The sophomore year, by coming on board sophomore year, we're really able to lay the foundation, and get the students started with the career assessments that we offer. Get the students working on the resume, because believe it or not, when you're a sophomore in high school, you're gonna remember what you did freshman year. When you're late stages junior year, you're never gonna remember, "Oh, yeah, I won that award, and what was that for?" And, "Oh, yeah, I think we made it to the playoffs that year in football." And so we have the students start working on a resume, you know, sophomore year and even freshman year if they come on board earlier with us, and that's kinda used as a living document. I cannot express the importance of a resume, an educational resume, you know, it's extremely important because that helps the student gather all of the information needed for the college applications. And then they can use that resume when they go to meet with the admissions reps from the schools that they're interested in. The admissions rep for that student city, state, or high school is their person. They're the ones that are going to be reading the college essays, the ones that are going to be making the first round of notes on the college application, the person to whom we want to become a human being instead of a random name and a number on a piece of paper. So, starting early, in our opinion, is the best way to do it. Again, because we can lay that foundation, really hit the ground running once junior year starts. Now, to be fair, we also take seniors up until Labor Day. And so they're coming in kind of screaming with their hair on fire, really stressed out because they're a little bit behind the ball at that point in time. It's a lot less stress and it's a lot easier process, especially for the family. Because remember, we're dealing with teenagers, and teenagers have hormones and mood swings, and a lot of other stressors in their life. And so it's nice to have an educational consultant like us help with that process, hiring an expert to help with that process so mom and dad don't have to go through all the stress with the kids at that point.
I can see two groups of people that this would be a really important thing for them. There's the one group of people that there's a professional family, college is definitely in the plans, and the parents are just too busy to oversee the whole process. And the other group is actually first-time college graduates, college-bound kids, because that knowledge doesn't exist in the community and the families, and it is important to have the right connections, have the right people that can guide you, make the right choices. Lots to consider. So, Annmarie, how can people find out more about what you do and connect with you?
Oh, for sure. So we are on social media. Collegeinroads.com is our email address or our website. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram under College Inroads. You're also again welcome to hit our website. That's probably the easiest way to get to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And guys, actually, Anne-Marie is being modest here. She has given me a lot of resources. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the description box of this video. Do make sure that you take the time to pause and take a look at all those resources and also get your kids involved in the process. It's not that you're applying for college, they're applying for college. So we want to make sure they start off as early as possible, becoming the independent thinkers and decision makers in deciding their future. So please make sure that you share this information with them as well. And in doing so, you're doing actually two things. Not only are you connecting them to somebody that can help them with their future, but you're also role modeling the behavior that it is okay not to have all the answers, that it is okay to ask questions and connect to people. The world is not a scary place, and there's good people that are genuinely interested in making the world a better place. And in this world that, we are so immersed in connectivity, people are finding themselves more and more isolated. So please make sure that you show them what it looks like to reach out and to connect and benefits from this thing we call human civilization that we have. So, and if you haven't already connected with us, please make sure you mark or click like and subscribe so you get notified of all the experts like Anne-Marie that come to our channel, share their expertise and their gifts with you guys. Now, before we finish, Anne-Marie, any final words for our audience today?
The only thing that I would say, 2 things. Number 1, there is a college for everybody. And so if you're worried that your student doesn't have a high enough GPA to go to university, if they want to go to a 4-year university, there are universities that have 100% acceptance rate. So just know that there is a college for everybody. The second thing that I would say is if you do have a student that's going to college, please complete and fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. You never know if you're going to qualify for aid for college or not. And there's no downside to filing FAFSA. Even if you have the means, sometimes it's a good idea for the school to know you have the means to be able to pay for college. So those are kind of my 2 pro tips there.
Good to know. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And I know that we're going to be definitely in touch in the future as well. And thank you, audience members, for tuning in on this really, really important topic. Please get the kids involved. And until next, cheers.